Welcome to Crossdressing Stories. Here, we share personal stories, celebrate self-expression. If you're on your own journey or simply curious, you've found your community. Subscribe and join the conversation.
It's funny how you can pinpoint the exact moment your entire life pivots. For some people, it's a car crash, a wedding, or the day their first child is born. For me, it was a piece of chocolate at a Christmas party. Looking back, everything that I am now, everything I've become, started on that cold December night, surrounded by fake snow and the aggressively cheerful sound of sleigh bell rock. The year had been fine, just fine. I was Victor, a 20-something guy with a decent job in data analysis, a steady girlfriend named Emma, and a best friend, Liam, who I'd known since we were building disastrous Lego spaceships in his basement. I was living a life that was comfortably, predictably, on track. I weighed about 170 pounds, most of which had settled into a friendly beer belly that I patted with affectionate resignation. I had a moustache I thought made me look distinguished, but probably just made me look like I was trying too hard. Life was a straight, well-paved road. Or so I thought. The annual office Christmas party was in full swing at a rented-out hotel ballroom. It was the usual affair, cheap sparkling wine, managers getting a little too loose on the dance floor, and a general air of forced merriment. Emma was there with me, looking stunning in a dark green dress that made her red hair pop. We were mingling, making small talk with my co-workers, when my boss, a portly man named Mr. Henderson, clapped me on the shoulder. "Victor, my boy." "Glad you could make it," he boomed, his voice a little slurred. "Got something for you. A little something extra from corporate. Top performers this year got a special gift from the SRU division." I had no idea what SRU stood for. Strategic Research Unit Special Resources and something. It was one of those mysterious corporate acronyms nobody ever bothered to explain. He handed me a small, elegant black box. It was sleek and minimalist, with just those 3 silver letters, SRU, embossed on the lid. "Thanks." "Mr. Henderson," I said, genuinely curious. Inside the box, nestled on a bed of black satin, was a single, perfect-looking bar of dark chocolate. It was wrapped in simple gold foil. Attached to it was a small, stiff card with a typed message, "A unique experience, tailored just for you, from SRU." "Wow, fancy," Emma said, peering over my shoulder. "Just for you. What did you do to deserve that?" "Exceeded my quarterly targets." "I guess." I shrugged, though it still felt odd. A single piece of chocolate seemed like a weirdly personal, almost intimate, bonus. Later that evening, back at our apartment, the party buzz was wearing off. We were getting ready for bed, the faint scent of pine from our small Christmas tree filling the air. I'd placed the box on my nightstand. "Are you going to eat your mysterious super chocolate?" Emma asked, pulling her hair back into a ponytail. "Might as well," I said, "be ashamed to let it go to waste." I unwrapped the foil. The chocolate was dark, almost black, and smelled incredible rich and earthy with a hint of something I couldn't quite place, something floral and exotic. I broke off a piece and popped it in my mouth. The flavor was intense, unlike any chocolate I'd ever had. It wasn't just sweet, it was complex, with layers of bitterness and a strange, warming sensation that spread through my chest as I swallowed it. It was so good that I finished the entire bar in a few more bites. "Well, did you have a unique experience?" Emma teased as she slid into bed. "It was just really good chocolate," I mumbled, my mouth still tingling. "Really? Really good." I didn't think anything more of it. I kissed her goodnight, turned off the light, and fell asleep. And that's when it started. The dream wasn't like my usual dreams, which were chaotic, Nonsensical montages of work stress and forgotten errands. This was different. It was lucid, hyper-realistic, and deeply unsettling. In the dream, I was standing in front of a full-length mirror in a room filled with soft, white light, but the reflection staring back at me wasn't quite me. It was as if I was watching a time-lapse video of a sculpture being subtly reshaped. The reflection's shoulders seemed to narrow, the jawline softening, the light dusting of hair on my chest faded away, leaving the skin smooth and clear. I watched, frozen in dream paralysis, as my waist cinched inward, just a fraction, and my hips flared out, creating a gentle, unfamiliar curve. My short, practical haircut began to grow, spilling over my ears, down my neck, the strands shifting from my standard brown to a richer, warmer shade. My hands, which I'd always thought of as plain and functional, seemed to slim down, the fingers elongating. The skin all over my body looked softer. Not just looked, I could feel it. I could feel a new smoothness, a lack of the rough calluses and nicks I was used to. The most shocking part was my face. The lines seemed gentler, my lips fuller, my eyelashes darker and longer. It was my face, but it was a woman's face, a beautiful woman. At that, I or the reflection lifted a delicate hand and traced the new curve of a cheekbone. The sensation was electric. I wasn't scared in the dream. Not exactly. I was mesmerized. It felt less like a transformation and more like a revelation, as if this was the form I was always supposed to have. There was a sense of rightness to it, a strange and profound peace in the elegant lines and soft curves of the body in the mirror. I woke up with a jolt. My heart was pounding, and the images from the dream were seared into my brain. The room was dark and silent, except for Emma's soft breathing beside me. I lay there for a long time, trying to shake the feeling, to dismiss it as just a weird dream brought on by rich food and cheap wine. But something felt off. I slipped out of bed and padded to the bathroom. Flipping on the dim vanity light, I stared at my reflection, my breath catching in my throat. It was just me. Same old Victor. Tired eyes. Stubble on my chin. My hair a mess from sleep. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was different. I ran a hand over my stomach. It felt softer, less solid. My skin felt unusually smooth under my fingertips. I dismissed it as my imagination playing tricks on me, my mind still caught in the bizarrely vivid dream. But as I stood there, a wave of dizziness washed over me, and I had to grip the edge of the sink. It was a strange sensation, like a subtle hum of energy under my skin, a feeling of lightness in my bones that wasn't there when I went to sleep. I took a deep breath, splashed some cold water on my face, and told myself to get a grip. It was just a dream. It was just a piece of chocolate. But as I climbed back into bed, a sliver of fear mingled with an undeniable and terrifying spark of curiosity, lodged itself deep in my gut. I had the chilling premonition that the straight, well-paved road I'd been walking on had just taken a very sharp, very unexpected turn. The year was about to end, but I felt like my story was just beginning, and I had no idea who the main character was going to be. The first couple of months of the new year, January and February, were a period of subtle denial. Life went on as usual. I went to work. I hung out with Liam. I had date nights with Emma. On the surface, nothing had changed. But underneath, the strange hum that started on Christmas night continued, a low-frequency vibration just beneath the surface of my reality. The first concrete thing I noticed was my appetite, or lack thereof. I'd always been a guy who could put away a whole pizza by himself. Suddenly, I'd get full after 2 slices. I stopped craving greasy burgers and beer, finding myself more interested in salads and lighter fare. Emma was thrilled. "Wow, look at you on a health kick," she said one night, as I picked at a chicken salad while she ate pasta. New year. New you, huh? I just shrugged, not wanting to admit that the thought of heavy, greasy food made my stomach churn. The weight started to come off without any real effort. My work pants started feeling loose around the waist. The friendly beer belly I'd sported for years began to recede. Slowly at first, then with startling speed. By the end of March, I'd stepped on the scale and was shocked to see it read 145 pounds. I hadn't weighed that little since college. I'd lost 25 pounds in 3 months without setting foot in a gym. You look great. Vic, Liam commented one Saturday while we were watching a football game at his place. Whatever diet you're on, it's working. You should give me the details. No diet, I said, feeling a familiar twinge of unease. Just eating less, I guess. He accepted it easily enough. But I couldn't. I knew this wasn't normal. The changes weren't just about weight. My body composition was shifting in ways I couldn't explain. The softness I'd felt that first night was becoming more pronounced. My skin, especially on my arms and chest, felt smoother, the hair finer. One morning, while I was shaving, I paused and really looked at myself. The mustache I'd been so proud of suddenly looked ridiculous. A coarse, dark smudge on a face that was beginning to look gentler. My jawline seemed less sharp, my cheeks a little less angular. On a sudden, inexplicable impulse, I lathered up my upper lip and shaved it clean off. I stared at the stranger in the mirror, without the mustache. My mouth looked fuller, my face more open. It was a dramatic improvement. When Emma saw me, her eyes widened. Oh my God, Victor! You shaved it, she exclaimed. She came closer, touching my upper lip. Wow, you look so much younger. I love it. Her approval was a relief, but it also felt like another step down a path I didn't understand. I also stopped cutting my hair. I just let it grow. It got shaggy, falling into my eyes, and I found myself constantly tucking it behind my ears. It was softer than it used to be, with a slight wave I'd never had before. The most unnerving conversation happened in mid-March. Emma and I were getting ready to go out, and she was plucking her eyebrows in the bathroom mirror. You know, she said, squinting at my reflection behind hers, your eyebrows are getting really bushy. Since you're embracing this new, less hairy look, you should let me clean them up for you. My immediate gut reaction was, no way, guys don't get their eyebrows done. But then I looked at my own reflection. She was right. They were unruly, and compared to the rest of my softening features, they looked harsh. I don't know. I hesitated. Oh, come on. I won't make them all thin and arched. Just a little shaping. A unisex look. It'll frame your face better, she insisted, holding up the tweezers like a surgeon with a scalpel. I don't know why I agreed. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was because a part of me, a deep, hidden part, wanted to see what would happen. I sat on the edge of the bathtub while she went to work. The quick, sharp sting of the tweezers was uncomfortable, but I gritted my teeth. She was meticulous, pulling a hair here, a hair there, stepping back to assess her work. When she was done, she handed me a mirror. The difference was subtle but significant. My brows were neater, with a clean, gentle arch that did, as she'd predicted, frame my eyes. It made my eyes look bigger, more expressive. It was another small chip away from the man I used to be. These physical changes were accompanied by a shift in my senses. My sense of smell seemed to heighten. I could pick up the scent of Emma's perfume from across the room, the smell of rain on hot pavement, the faint aroma of coffee from the kitchen in the morning. Foods tasted more intense. My skin became incredibly sensitive. The rough fabric of my old jeans felt abrasive. and I started favoring softer chinos and t-shirts. A casual touch from Emma on my arm would send a pleasant tingle through my entire body. I tried to rationalize it all. The weight loss was from eating better. The skin changes were from better soap. The new sensitivity was just in my head. I was living in a state of willful ignorance, acknowledging each change as it happened, but refusing to connect the dots. To admit that something fundamental and strange was happening to me felt like stepping off a cliff. But the inner dialogue was constant. I'd look at my hands on the keyboard at work and think, they look so much slimmer. I'd catch my reflection in a shop window and be startled by the softer silhouette. The dream from Christmas night replayed in my head constantly, not as a memory, but as a prophecy slowly coming true. I was split in two. Half of me was terrified, clinging to the familiar identity of Victor, the data analyst, the boyfriend, the regular guy. That half of me wanted to start chugging beer and eating steak, to lift weights until my muscles burned, to do anything to stop this slide into something else. But the other half, the quiet, watchful part of me, was captivated. There was a strange, illicit thrill in seeing my body change. A part of me liked the feeling of being lighter, more graceful. A part of me liked the way my face looked without the mustache, with neatly shaped brows. It was a secret, shameful pleasure that I couldn't admit to anyone, least of all myself. I was becoming a stranger to myself, and the most frightening part was that, in the deepest, most hidden corners of my heart, I think I was starting to like what I was seeing. The fear was real, but so was the dawning, terrifying excitement. By April, the subtle shifts had given way to changes that were impossible to ignore. The battle inside my head intensified, turning from a quiet unease into a full-blown internal war. The man I had always been was losing ground, and a new, bewildering identity was starting to assert itself with terrifying force. The numbers on the scale were the first undeniable piece of evidence. I had dropped to 135 pounds. I took my measurements one night, my heart thudding with a mixture of dread and morbid curiosity. My waist, which had once been a comfortable 34 inches, was now down to 29. My hips, however, seemed to be going in the opposite direction. I measured them 3 times, unable to believe the tape. 36 inches. I had never had hips before. My body had always been a straight line from my shoulders down. Now, there was a definite gentle curve. It was the sight in the mirror. Though, that truly sent me into a spiral. I'd gotten into the habit of examining my body every morning, a secret ritual of discovery and dread. One morning in late April, I was standing in front of the bathroom mirror after a shower, toweling off. When I saw it, my chest wasn't flat anymore. There were small, firm mounds of flesh that hadn't been there before. When I touched them, they were tender, and I could feel a hard little knot, like a pea, under each nipple, breast buds, and between them, the barest hint of a shadow. The beginning of a cleavage. Panic, cold and absolute, seized me. This wasn't just weight loss or softer skin. This was my body fundamentally changing its shape, its very nature. I stumbled back from the mirror, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I wrapped the towel tightly around my chest, as if I could hide the change from myself. I'm losing my masculinity. I whispered to the empty room, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. It felt like I was being erased, like the Victor I knew was dissolving, and I didn't know what would be left in his place. For a week, I was a wreck. I avoided looking at myself without a shirt on. I wore baggy sweaters, even as the spring weather warmed up, trying to conceal the terrifying new contours of my torso. I tried to fight back. I went to the grocery store and bought steak, beer, and potatoes, all the manly foods I'd lost my taste for. I forced myself to eat them, But my body rebelled. The heavy food sat like a rock in my stomach, making me feel sluggish and sick. I tried to do push-ups in the living room, to reclaim some sense of strength and solidity, but my arms felt strangely weak, my body lighter and less powerful than I remembered. It was like trying to pilot a vehicle I no longer knew how to operate. But then, slowly, something began to shift within me. The panic, which had been a roaring fire, subsided into a low, simmering anxiety, and in its place, another emotion began to grow, one that I was deeply ashamed of: fascination. After that first week of terror, I started looking at myself again. I would stand in front of the mirror and trace the new lines of my body. I'd turn to the side, examining the swell of my hips, the curve of my backside that was now fuller and rounder. I'd look at my chest and see not a horrifying deformity, but the beginning of an elegant, feminine shape. My face was changing daily. My eyes seemed larger, my lips plumper. The hair on my head was now shoulder length, and it was soft and glossy, with a natural auburn tint coming through that caught the light. One evening, I was washing my face and found myself staring at my reflection for a long time. Without thinking, I gathered my long hair and piled it on top of my head with one hand, letting a few tendrils fall around my face. The person looking back at me was pretty. There was no other word for it. It was a soft, androgynous face that leaned more toward feminine than masculine. And I liked it. That realization was a thunderclap. I, Victor, a man, liked looking feminine. The admission, even just to myself, felt like a monumental betrayal of everything I was supposed to be. But it was also the truth. The fear and disgust were still there, but now they were mixed with a strange and powerful sense of pleasure. Looking in the mirror was no longer just an exercise in horror. It was becoming a secret indulgence. This created a massive conflict within me. I was living a double life inside my own head. In the outside world, I was still Victor. I went to work. I talked sports with Liam. I was Emma's boyfriend, but in the quiet moments alone, in the privacy of the bathroom, I was someone else. I was this emerging creature, this person with soft skin and budding breasts, and a face that was becoming disconcertingly beautiful. I felt like I was being torn in two. One part of me desperately wanted to hold on to the comfortable, known world of being a man. It was safe. It was what I knew. It was what everyone, Emma, Liam, my family, my co-workers expected of me. The other part, the part that was growing stronger every day, was undeniably drawn to this transformation. It was a siren song, pulling me toward a future that was both terrifying and intoxicating. I would have conversations with myself, my thoughts racing. This is a disease. You need to see a doctor. You need to tell someone. But what would I even say? Hi. Doctor. I think I'm turning into a woman, and I think it might have been a piece of chocolate. And the scariest part is, I think I might be okay with it. They'd lock me up. The desire to explore this new femininity became a craving. I started noticing women's clothes in shop windows, not in the abstract way I had before, but with a critical, interested eye. I'd admire the cut of a blouse, the flow of a skirt, the elegant shape of a pair of heels. I started watching Emma when she did her makeup, fascinated by the transformation, the way a few strokes of a brush could enhance her features. This inner turmoil made me withdrawn and moody. Emma noticed. Of course. Vic, what's going on with you? She asked one night as we were lying in bed. You seem so distant lately. Is it work? Is it me? No, it's not you, I said quickly, turning away from her. Just a lot on my mind. How could I ever explain it to her? How could I tell the woman I loved that I was horrified and at the same time, thrilled to find myself slowly, inexplicably, turning into one. The road ahead was a complete fog, and for the first time in my life, I was utterly, terrifyingly lost. The tipping point came in June, on a lazy, sun-drenched Saturday afternoon. The internal battle had been raging for months, leaving me exhausted and perpetually on edge. I had reached a stalemate with myself, too afraid to retreat and too confused to advance. It was Emma, in her infinite, and sometimes terrifying, perceptiveness, who finally pushed me off the cliff. We were lounging in the living room, a mess of magazines and coffee cups on the table between us. I was staring into space, lost in my usual vortex of anxiety. My hair was now long enough to be tied back in a small, messy ponytail, and I was wearing a soft t-shirt that did very little to hide the undeniable swell of my small breasts. Emma was watching me with a thoughtful, almost mischievous look in her eyes. She'd been observing my changes with a strange mix of concern and fascination, but she hadn't pushed the issue, for which I was grateful. Today. However, her patience had apparently run out. "You know," she began, her voice casual, "I've been thinking, with your long hair, and your smooth skin, and, you know," she gestured vaguely at my chest, "I bet I could make you look like a girl, a really convincing one." My blood ran cold. "What, Emma? Don't be ridiculous." "I'm not being ridiculous. I'm being serious," she said, her eyes gleaming. "I bet I could make you look so much like a woman that your own mother wouldn't recognize you. In fact," a slow, wicked grin spread across her face, "I'll make you a bet." "A bet?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Yes, a bet. You let me give you the full treatment, and I mean everything. Hair, makeup, clothes, the works, if, when I'm done, you can honestly look in the mirror and say you still look like a man. I win. I'll drop the whole subject and never mention it again." "And if you lose?" I asked, my heart hammering against my ribs. "If I lose," she said, leaning forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial hush, "which I won't, then you have to go out with me, in public, as a woman, just for an hour. We'll go get coffee or something. No one will know it's you." The idea was insane. It was terrifying. It was also the most thrilling, electrifying thing I had ever heard. It was a dare aimed directly at the secret, curious part of my soul that had been clamoring for release. It was a chance to stop wondering and to know. "Fine," I heard myself say, the word escaping before my fear could stop it. "You're on." Emma's face lit up. "Yes. Okay. Don't move. The transformation begins now." The next 2 hours were a surreal blur of activity. She started by running a hot bath for me, adding some kind of scented oil that filled the bathroom with the smell of lavender and vanilla. "First things first," she declared, handing me a brand new pink razor. "A real woman is smooth. Everything from the neck down has to go." Sitting in that hot, fragrant water, meticulously shaving my legs, my chest, and even my armpits felt like a bizarre ritual. The unfamiliar sensation of the blade gliding over my calves, leaving behind impossibly smooth skin, was both strange and oddly satisfying. When I was done, my body felt sleek, unfamiliar. Next was my hair. She sat me down on a stool in front of the bathroom mirror and went to work with a box of hair dye she'd apparently had stashed away for just such an occasion. "This auburn shade will bring out the green in your eyes," she explained, her fingers working the cool, chemical-smelling dye through my long hair. After rinsing it out, she spent what felt like an eternity blow-drying it, using a round brush to give it volume and a soft, feminine wave that curled just below my shoulders. "Now for the details," she chirped, pulling out a full manicure set. She filed my nails into a neat, rounded shape and then, to my horror, produced a bottle of glossy, candy apple red nail polish. Emma, no, that's too much, I protested. The bet was for the full treatment. Victor, no backing out now. The feeling of the cool polish being painted onto my fingernails, and then my toenails, was one of the strangest sensations yet. It was so permanent, so overtly feminine. I looked at my hands, with their slender fingers and glossy red tips, and they didn't look like my hands at all. Then came the eyebrows. She tweezed and shaped them with an artist's precision, creating a perfect, elegant arch that completely changed the expression on my face, making me look softer, more questioning. Okay, time for the foundation of any great look, she said, disappearing into our bedroom and returning with a set of her own lingerie. She handed me a lacy, padded push-up bra and a pair of silky black panties. My mind screamed no. This was the line, but the bet was the bet. My hands trembled as I took them. Putting them on was an exercise in humiliation and wonder. The silk of the panties felt incredible against my newly smooth skin. And the bra. The bra was a revelation. It lifted and pushed my small breasts together, creating a shockingly realistic cleavage. It felt tight and confining, but it also made my posture change, forcing me to stand up straighter, to pull my shoulders back. She had me put on a simple white tank top that clung to my new curves, and a pair of her own dark-wash skinny jeans. They were tight, but because of my weight loss and shifted proportions, they fit perfectly, hugging my hips and rear in a way my own pants never had. Final phase, she announced, spinning me around to face the mirror, the face. For the next 20 minutes, she became a painter and my face her canvas. The cool slick of liquid foundation evening out my skin tone. The soft brush of powder. A hint of pink blush on the apples of my cheeks. She used a highlighter to catch the light on my cheekbones and the bridge of my nose. She defined my eyes with a thin black line of eyeliner and a few coats of mascara that made my lashes look impossibly long and dark. The final touch was a swipe of sheer pink lipstick that made my lips look full and moist. Okay, she said, her voice filled with a kind of breathless reverence. It's time. Don't look until I say so. She led me out of the bathroom and positioned me in front of the full-length mirror on our bedroom door. My heart was a drum solo in my chest. I was terrified of what I was about to see. You can look now, she whispered. I lifted my eyes, and the world stopped. The person in the mirror was not Victor, not even close. The person in the mirror was a woman, a stranger, a stunningly beautiful woman with soft auburn hair, wide, dark-lashed eyes, and a gentle, curved body. She was wearing a tank top and jeans, but she wore them with an innate femininity that I couldn't comprehend. I lifted my hand with its glossy red nails, and she mirrored the movement. I turned my head, and she copied me. The reflection was me, but it was also completely, utterly, someone else. The sheer, disorienting shock of it took my breath away. I could feel the softness of my skin, the unfamiliar weight of my breasts in the bra, the way my hips swayed slightly when I shifted my weight. I saw not a man in a costume, but a woman staring back at me, and in her eyes, I saw the same fear, the same wonder, that I was feeling. It was in that moment, staring at that beautiful stranger, that a name popped into my head, unbidden and fully formed. Veronica. Just then, the doorbell rang, shattering the spell. Oh, shoot! That must be Liam, Emma gasped. I forgot he was coming over to grab his laptop. Just stay here. Don't move. Before I could protest, she was gone. I was frozen in front of the mirror, my mind reeling. Liam, my best friend. He couldn't see me like this. He would freak out. He would laugh at me. He would never look at me the same way again. I heard their voices in the hallway, and then footsteps approaching the bedroom. There was nowhere to hide. The door swung open. Liam walked in. Mid-sentence. "Hey, Emma, I also left my—" Whoa! He stopped dead, his eyes landing on me. He blinked, a confused smile on his face. He looked from me to Emma and back again. "Sorry, I didn't realize you had a friend over. I'm Liam." He didn't recognize me. My brain short-circuited. He was looking right at me, at Veronica, and he had no idea who I was. He just saw a woman, a friend of Emma's. Emma, bless her soul, jumped in smoothly. "Liam, this is Veronica, a friend from my yoga class." "Nice to meet you." "Veronica," Liam said, his smile genuine and friendly. He gave me a polite little nod, then turned back to Emma to get his laptop. I just stood there, mute, my world tilting on its axis. He had looked at me, and he had seen a woman. Not just a man in a dress, but a woman. The external validation was so powerful, so absolute. It was like a physical blow. It confirmed what the mirror had just shown me. After Liam left, still oblivious, Emma turned to me, her eyes wide. "Well," she said, a slow smile spreading across her face. "I guess I win the bet." I could only nod, my gaze still fixed on the woman in the mirror, Veronica. The bet was over, but I had a sinking, soaring feeling that my journey, her journey, was just getting started. The weeks following the bet were a watershed. The birth of Veronica, even just for that one afternoon, had unlocked something within me. The inner conflict didn't vanish, but its nature changed. The question was no longer if I was changing, but who I was becoming. The name Veronica stuck in my head, a whisper that grew louder each day. Emma, having won the bet, was true to her word. The following weekend, she invoked her prize. "Time to pay up," she said, a playful glint in her eye. "Veronica has a coffee date." The fear was immense, a cold knot of dread in my stomach, but it was tangled with that same thread of illicit excitement that had been pulling at me for months. The process of getting ready this time felt different. It was less of a shocking prank and more of a deliberate, focused transformation. Emma acted as my guide, my stylist, my cheerleader. She chose a simple, elegant outfit, a knee-length, flowing A-line skirt in a floral pattern, a soft cream-colored blouse, and a pair of low, comfortable wedge sandals. Nothing too flashy. She advised, "The goal is to blend in, not to stand out." Doing the makeup again was just as surreal, but this time I paid closer attention, watching her techniques, absorbing the knowledge. When she was done, Veronica stared back at me from the mirror once more. She was still a stranger, but a slightly more familiar one now. Walking out of our apartment building was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Every nerve in my body was screaming. I felt exposed, a fraud, certain that every person we passed on the street would point and laugh, that they could see the man hiding beneath the makeup and the skirt. But they didn't. No one gave us a second glance. We were just two young women on their way to get coffee. The sun felt warm on my bare legs, a sensation I'd never experienced before. The gentle sway of the skirt as I walked was a constant, soft reminder of the role I was playing. I was acutely aware of everything the way I walked. Emma had to remind me to take smaller steps. The way I held my purse clutched awkwardly at first, then more naturally at my side. The pitch of my voice, I barely spoke. Terrified my deep voice would give me away. We sat at a small outdoor table at a cafe, and the 20 minutes we spent there felt like a lifetime. I watched people walk by, Families, couples, groups of friends, all living their normal lives, completely unaware of the massive seismic event happening inside me. I was invisible and hypervisible all at once. I was Veronica, and I was surviving. More than that, a part of me was enjoying it, the feeling of liberation, of successfully inhabiting this new identity in the real world, was intoxicating. That one outing broke the dam. Veronica started to make more frequent appearances. At first, just within the confines of our apartment, Emma would help me dress up, and we'd spend the evening watching movies. It felt like a sleepover, a strange and intimate game of dress-up. I learned how to move, how to sit, how to exist in this new body and these new clothes. I practiced walking in heels, starting with low pumps and wobbling around our living room like a newborn foal. Liam remained a crucial, if unwitting, part of this. He became my litmus test. He'd come over to hang out, and Emma would introduce him to Veronica again. "Veronica's here again," she'd say brightly. "Hey, Veronica, good to see you," he'd reply with his easy, friendly smile, completely clueless. He liked her. He thought she was a bit shy, a bit quiet, but he treated her with a warmth and respect that did more to solidify my new identity than anything else. He was talking to her, not to a costume. One night in late July, Liam came over for a barbecue. Emma had helped me get ready as Veronica in a simple summer dress. The three of us were sitting on our small balcony, the sun setting, when Liam, a couple of beers in, turned to me. "You know, Veronica," he said thoughtfully, "you seem really familiar to me. Have we met somewhere before? Besides here?" My heart stopped. This was it. The gig was up. Emma shot me a panicked look. I just shook my head, my throat too tight to speak. "Huh," he said, shrugging. "Weird. Must just be one of those faces." The moment passed, but it was a clear sign that the charade was becoming untenable. The line between Victor and Veronica was blurring, not just for me, but for the world around me. The secret was getting too big to hold. A few days later, I decided I had to tell him. I couldn't keep lying to my best friend. I asked him to come over, and I asked Emma to be there for support. But I also made another decision. I would tell him as Veronica. He needed to see who I was becoming. He arrived, and I let him in. I was wearing a simple pair of women's jeans and a soft sweater, my hair down, minimal makeup on. It was my most casual, least costumed look yet. "Hey, Veronica," he said, stepping inside. "Where's Vic?" "Liam, can you sit down?" I said, and this time, I didn't try to modulate my voice. I used my normal tone. The sound of my familiar voice coming from Veronica's face made him freeze. The friendly smile vanished, replaced by a look of profound confusion. He stared at me, his eyes wide, flicking back and forth as he tried to process what he was seeing and hearing. "Vic," he whispered. The name a question, an accusation, and a plea all at once. I just nodded, my eyes filling with tears. "It's me." He sank onto the couch, looking as if he'd been punched in the gut. Emma came and sat next to him, placing a gentle hand on his arm. And then, I told him everything. I told him about the chocolate bar, the dream, the slow, inexplicable changes to my body. I told him about the fear, the confusion, and the secret, growing pleasure. I told him about Emma's bet, about the coffee shop, about the name Veronica. I stumbled over the words, my voice cracking, tears streaming down my face. I laid bare the entire, insane, impossible story of the last 7 months. He listened in absolute silence, his face a mask of shock. I couldn't read his expression. Was it disgust? Anger, pity when I finally finished? The silence in the room was deafening. I braced myself for the explosion. For him to get up and walk out of my life forever. He was quiet for a long time, just staring at me, really looking at me for the first time. Then he finally spoke, his voice low and hoarse. So all those times I was talking to Veronica, that was me. I whispered. He shook his head slowly, a humorless laugh escaping his lips. Wow. He looked from me to Emma, then back to me. He scrubbed a hand over his face. I could see the gears turning in his head, the pieces clicking into place. Then he looked me straight in the eye. And what I saw in his face wasn't anger or disgust. It was a deep, bewildered concern. It was the look of a friend trying to understand something unimaginable. Vic. Veronica. Whatever I'm supposed to call you, he said, his voice soft. This is a lot. I'm not going to lie, my head is spinning, but you're still you. You're my best friend. He took a deep breath. And you look actually really beautiful. The relief that washed over me was so immense. It made me sob. He didn't run. He didn't hate me. He looked at me, at this impossible version of me, and he still saw his friend. He stood up, crossed the room, and pulled me into a hug. It was awkward at first, my new body. His confusion, but then it was just a hug between two friends who had known each other forever. We'll figure this out, he mumbled into my hair about the whatever this is. We'll figure it out together. And in that moment, I knew he meant it. His acceptance was the final piece of the puzzle. With Emma by my side and Liam still in my corner, I felt, for the first time, that I wasn't a freak or a fraud. I was just me. I was Veronica. And maybe, just maybe, that was going to be okay. August and September were the months the transformation went from cosmetic to fundamental. It was as if my body, having received some kind of psychological green light from the acceptance of my closest friends, decided to complete its project with breathtaking and terrifying speed. The last vestiges of Victor were systematically dismantled and carted away, leaving only Veronica in their place. The physical changes became drastic. The scale dipped to 125 pounds, but it wasn't a sickly weight. My body was reshaping itself, distributing that weight in an entirely feminine way. My waist seemed to shrink even further, cinching down to 26 inches, while my hips and backside swelled to 37 inches, giving me a classic hourglass figure I could never have imagined possessing. My breasts, which had been small and tentative, blossomed. They became full and round, tender to the touch, and undeniably female. I had to go with Emma to be properly fitted for bras. A surreal experience that left me feeling both mortified and strangely validated. Standing in a lingerie department, being measured by a kindly older woman who didn't bat an eye, felt like an official rite of passage into a world I was now permanently inhabiting. But the most profound and irreversible changes were happening below the waist. It started with a strange, persistent ache, a deep internal cramping that I couldn't explain. Then, over the course of a few weeks, I noticed a dramatic alteration in my anatomy. My testicles, which had been shrinking for months, seemed to disappear. They retracted, absorbed back into my body until there was nothing left. My penis, in turn, underwent a rapid process of atrophy, shrinking and changing in texture and shape until it was barely recognizable. I was in a constant state of awe and terror. I would spend hours in the bathroom, just staring at my changing body in the mirror, documenting the daily shifts. It was like watching a science fiction movie, only it was my own body. One day, I noticed a new development, a new separation, a formation of flesh that hadn't been there the day before, an opening over the course of a week. A fully formed, anatomically correct vagina took shape. The first time I saw it, complete and undeniable, I nearly fainted. The final, unequivocal piece of my male identity was gone, erased, replaced. I wasn't a man transforming into a woman anymore. The transformation was complete. I was a woman. The culmination of this process arrived in late September. I woke up one morning with a dull, persistent cramp in my lower abdomen and a feeling of heavy lethargy. When I went to the bathroom, I saw blood. Panic flared for a moment before the realization hit me with the force of a tidal wave. I was having my period. I slumped onto the closed toilet lid, my head in my hands, and just laughed. It was a wild, unhinged sound, a mixture of despair and absurdity. Of all the impossible things that had happened, this was the most mundane and yet the most profound. It was the biological anchor of womanhood. And now it was mine. I called Emma, my voice trembling. "You need to come over, and you need to bring supplies." She understood immediately. She showed up 20 minutes later with a bag containing various boxes of pads and tampons, a heating pad, and a pint of chocolate fudge brownie ice cream. She sat with me on the bathroom floor and patiently explained the mechanics of it all, things I had only ever known about from a detached, male perspective. It was another bizarre bonding moment, a girlfriend teaching her new girlfriend the ropes. The pain was real, the hormonal mood swings were intense, but it was also the final, incontrovertible proof. The body I was living in was a fully functional female body. Psychologically, this period of intense physical change was a crucible. The old conflicts between Victor and Veronica died down, simply because Victor had no ground left to stand on. There was no going back. The ship had sailed, and the shore I'd left from had vanished from view. All that was left was to accept the new reality. And I did. I started to think of myself, exclusively, as Veronica. The name felt natural now, comfortable. Saying the name Victor in my head felt like talking about a different person, a brother or an old friend I no longer saw. With this acceptance came a new emotional landscape. My feelings were more intense, closer to the surface. I cried at sad movies. I felt joy so intensely it was like a physical sensation, and my anger, when it came, was a hot, sharp flash. My entire way of processing the world had been rewired. Nowhere was this more apparent than in my relationship with Liam, with the truth out in the open. Our friendship deepened, but it also began to change. He was my rock through the most intense parts of the transformation. He'd come over just to sit with me, to watch a movie, to treat me with a gentle normalcy that was the most precious gift he could have given me. He never made me feel like a freak. He just treated me like me. But I started to see him differently. I noticed the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the comforting sound of his laugh, the way he always seemed to know when I needed a quiet presence rather than a conversation. The platonic love I'd always had for my best friend began to curdle and transform into something deeper, something with a current of electricity running through it. I was falling in love with him. It was a terrifying realization. Our friendship was the most stable thing in my tumultuous new life, and I was risking it with these new, inappropriate feelings. How could he ever see me that way? He'd known me my whole life as a man, as his best buddy. To him, I was probably just Victor in a new package. The tension grew between us, a silent, unspoken thing. The easy physical camaraderie we'd once shared was replaced by a charged awareness. A casual brush of our hands would send a jolt through me. I'd catch him looking at me sometimes with an expression I couldn't decipher, a mixture of confusion, wonder, and something else I was too afraid to name. I was Veronica now, in body and in mind. I had a new name, a new anatomy, a new way of experiencing the world. But I was also standing on the precipice of a new and terrifying emotional frontier, with my oldest friend standing on the other side, and I had no idea how to cross the distance between us. As the leaves turned from green to gold that autumn, I began the daunting task of building a new life. The transformation was physically complete, but now I had to integrate Veronica into the real world, beyond the safe cocoon of my apartment and the acceptance of Emma and Liam. The biggest hurdle was my job. For weeks, I agonized over it. How could I possibly explain this? I couldn't just show up one day in a skirt and heels. I drafted a dozen emails to HR and Mr. Henderson, each one more awkward and unbelievable than the last. In the end, it was Liam who gave me the courage. "You just have to do it," he said one evening. "Be honest. Maybe not the magic chocolate bar honest, but honest about who you are now. People might surprise you." So I took a deep breath, scheduled a meeting with HR and my boss, and walked into the office as Veronica for the first time. I wore a conservative but stylish outfit. Emma had helped me pick out a navy blue sheath dress, a simple blazer, and low black pumps. My hands were shaking, and I felt sick to my stomach. The meeting was the most surreal 20 minutes of my professional life. I explained, in carefully chosen corporate-friendly terms, that I was transgender and had been undergoing a transition. I stated that from now on, I would be living and working as Veronica, and that my legal name change was in process. Mr. Henderson's jaw practically hit the floor. The HR manager, a woman named Carol, just blinked at me, her pen frozen above her notepad. I expected to be fired on the spot. But after a long, stunned silence, Carol cleared her throat, straightened her papers, and said, "Okay. Thank you for informing us. Veronica, we will need to update your employee profile. We have policies for this. We will send out a memo to your department to ensure a respectful and smooth transition." And that was it. It was shockingly, blessedly, anticlimactic. The corporate world, it turned out, was more prepared for this than I was. The memo went out, and the next Monday, I walked into the office as Veronica. The first day was a gauntlet of stares, whispers, and awkward encounters. Some people avoided eye contact. Others did a comical double-take. But for the most part, people were polite. They used my new name. They used the right pronouns. And after a week or two of novelty, the office gossip moved on to something else. I was still the person who was good with spreadsheets, and that, it turned out, was what mattered most. I was Veronica, the data analyst, and it worked. With my professional life settled, my personal life took center stage, especially the unresolved tension with Liam. Our friendship had become a delicate dance of unspoken feelings. He was my confidant, my biggest supporter. But the romantic undercurrent was becoming an unbearable weight between us. The breaking point came in late October. He had come over to help me hang some pictures. We were standing close together in the hallway, both reaching for the same nail. When our hands brushed, it was a simple, accidental touch. But for me, it was a lightning strike. I pulled my hand back as if I'd been burned. "Ronnie," he asked, using the nickname he'd recently adopted for me. His voice was soft, and his eyes were searching mine. "Are you okay?" "I can't do this anymore. Liam," I whispered, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "Can't do what?" "This pretending that I don't feel." I trailed off, unable to say the words. He stepped closer, his gaze so intense it felt like he could see right through me. Feel what he prompted gently. "I'm in love with you," I blurted out, the confession hanging in the air between us, fragile and terrifying. "And it's stupid, and it's probably ruined everything, but I can't keep pretending that you're just my friend." He didn't say anything. He just kept looking at me, his expression unreadable. My heart sank. I'd done it. I'd destroyed the one friendship that mattered most. I turned to walk away, to hide in the bedroom, but he reached out and gently took my arm, stopping me. "It doesn't ruin everything," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Ronnie, I think I'm falling for you. Too." He shook his head, a look of wonder on his face. "It's been so confusing. I've been watching you become you, and you're still the same person I've known my whole life, my best friend, but you're also different. You're beautiful, and you're strong, and He took a deep breath. "When I look at you, I don't see Victor anymore. I just see you, and I want to be with you." He cupped my face in his hands, his thumbs gently stroking my cheeks. Then he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't a tentative, exploratory kiss. It was a kiss of release, of months of pent-up emotion and unspoken longing pouring out. It was a kiss that felt like coming home, in that moment. All the fear and confusion melted away, replaced by a profound sense of rightness. Our relationship evolved quickly after that. Being with Liam was both completely new and incredibly familiar. We already knew each other's deepest secrets and silliest habits. The foundation of our lifelong friendship was still there, but now it was layered with romance, passion, and a new kind of intimacy I'd never known was possible. Experiencing physical intimacy as a woman was a revelation. It wasn't just a physical act, it was a deeply emotional and vulnerable experience. My new body responded in ways that were astonishing, and for the first time, I understood the powerful connection between emotional and physical pleasure. The first time Liam and I made love, I experienced an orgasm that was so overwhelming, so all-encompassing. It was as if my entire nervous system had been rebooted. It was a feeling of such profound connection and release that I wept afterward. Not from sadness, but from a joy so intense it was painful. Emma, far from being a third wheel, transitioned seamlessly from my ex-girlfriend to my best girlfriend. Our bond became, in some ways, even stronger. There was no jealousy, only a deep, abiding affection. She had lost a boyfriend but gained a sister. She was my go-to for fashion advice, my partner in crime for shopping trips, the one I called when I needed to vent about work or gush about Liam. She taught me how to perfect a smoky eye, how to walk in stilettos without breaking an ankle, and how to navigate the complex world of female friendships. She was an indispensable part of my new life. My style solidified. I discovered I loved the elegance of midi skirts and fitted tops that showed off my new figure. I embraced color, my closet filling with jewel tones and bright patterns. My nails were always painted a cheerful shade of coral or pink. My long auburn hair became my signature feature, and my makeup routine settled into a soft, sensual look that enhanced my features without masking them. I felt beautiful. For the first time in my entire existence, I felt truly at home in my own skin. As the year drew to a close, my life was unrecognizable from what it had been 12 months prior. I was Veronica. I had a job where I was respected, a best friend who was my fashion guru, and a loving partner who had known me through every iteration of myself. The road had been terrifying and confusing, but it had led me here, to a place of happiness I didn't even know existed. The anniversary arrived quietly, marked by the first chill of a new winter. A year, a full 365 days since the Christmas party, since the mysterious chocolate bar from a company I still knew nothing about. The box was long gone, but the memory of it, and the questions surrounding it, lingered in the back of my mind. Was it really the chocolate? Was it some kind of experimental drug, a bizarre genetic trigger delivered as a corporate bonus? I'd tried searching for SRU online, but the acronym was too generic. leading me down a rabbit hole of shipping companies and research universities with no clear answers. The mystery of how it happened remained. But as I sat on the couch in the apartment I now shared with Liam, a cup of tea warming my hands, I realized something profound. The how didn't really matter anymore. In the beginning, I had been obsessed with the cause, with the external force that had hijacked my body and my life. It felt like something that had been done to me. But over the course of the year, my perspective had shifted entirely. This transformation, as shocking and involuntary as its catalyst may have been, had led me to a truth about myself I never would have discovered otherwise. It wasn't just about my body changing. It was about my soul finding its correct alignment. The fear and conflict I'd felt in the beginning wasn't just about losing my masculinity. It was the friction of a lifetime of social conditioning rubbing up against my authentic self. I had been living life as Victor, playing a role that was expected of me, a role I had never thought to question. I hadn't been unhappy. Not really. But I had been living in a room with the curtains drawn. The transformation threw those curtains wide open, flooding the room with a brilliant, terrifying light. It forced me to confront the most fundamental questions of identity. Who am I without the body I was born in? Who am I without the name I was given? Who am I when everything I thought was permanent is stripped away? The answer, I discovered, was Veronica. She hadn't been created by the chocolate. She had been there all along, dormant, waiting. The physical changes were just the key that unlocked the door. The journey had been about learning to accept her, to embrace her, and finally, to love her. It was a crash course in self-discovery, an education in emotion, vulnerability, and strength. I learned how to care for myself in a new way, not just the fun things, like makeup and clothes, but the essential things. I learned to listen to my body, to respect its cycles and its needs. I learned to navigate the world with a heightened awareness, to value intuition and emotional intelligence as much as logic and reason. I learned that femininity wasn't weakness, it was a different, and in many ways, more resilient, kind of strength. My relationships were the anchors that kept me from being swept away. Emma's playful dare had been the push I needed to see myself for the first time. Her unwavering friendship showed me the power of female solidarity. And Liam's love was the ultimate validation. He had known me at my most masculine and had fallen in love with me at my most feminine. His love wasn't for a gender, it was for the person, the soul, that had been constant throughout. He saw me, the real me, and loved me not in spite of the changes, but because of the woman I had become. As I looked toward the future, there were no more roadmaps. The straight, predictable path I'd been on as Victor was gone forever. Veronica's path was unwritten, a winding trail through a new and beautiful landscape. There would be challenges. I knew, but for the first time, I felt equipped to face them. I was no longer fighting myself. I was whole. The year I became her was the hardest, strangest, most terrifying year of my life. It was also the year I was truly born. I had lost a life I thought I wanted, only to gain one that I was truly meant to live. I was happy. I was loved. And I was, finally and completely, myself. And I wouldn't trade that for anything.